Lesi isikhathi sokuthandaza ngesitu noma ukuzidla. Siyathokoza, singahlala phasi. Kwanje singizobawa unobhala asibizele iordere yanamhlanje.
Debate on vote number 37, Arts and Culture Appropriation Bill.
I'm now going to invite the Honorable Minister of Arts and Culture, Honorable Member, to lead the debate.
Thank you, Chairperson of the House, to ministers and deputy ministers who are here with us, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and privilege to present this budget vote of the Department of Arts and Culture in the 5th Democratic Parliament of the Republic of South Africa in the year of the Freedom Charter. Sibonga kakhulu ingqalabutho ezayibamba ekhaleni ukwenza isiqiniseko sokuthi ingqungquthela yabantu eKliptown ngo-1955 yaphumelela, iphume futhi nezinqumo ezinqala ngoba lo mbono nqangi owaphuma lapho wenza ukuthi namhlanje sibe nomthethoseko wezwe esiziqhenyayo ngawo. Arts and culture, therefore, is the mirror which the complex processes of nation building and social cohesion, of transformation of the life and living conditions and places and symbols reflect back on us. Ladies and gentlemen, we gather in this august house 21 years after the birth of our democracy against a recent backdrop of some horrendous occurrences of psychological and physical violence in our communities against nationals who are not foreign to Africa, our common motherland, of rising anger by young students against colonial and apartheid-era statues and symbols, of seething tensions within our society as a whole. And the way to respond to this challenge, or these challenges first and foremost, would be for us to, amongst other things, remind ourselves of what the preamble says in the Constitution, that we should recognize the injustices of our past and honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our lands. Firmly rooted in the Freedom Charter, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the NDP, and the election mandate of the 5th administration of the country, our aim in the department has therefore been to clearly articulate the contribution of arts, culture, and heritage sector to job creation and economic development by giving citizens more scope to shape their own lives. It is to get the department and its entities to work far more effectively with communities and key stakeholders and improve the efficiency of DAC entities, coordination, and collaboration across government. Madam Chair, pursuant to these aspirations and goals, I can report the following achievements and plans. The attacks on foreign nationals demonstrate the need to have a proactive approach to nation building and social cohesion. We need thematic community conversations, as we have started, to continue, that address issues that give rise to the need for social cohesion and nation building, rather than broad approach. To this end, we are committing ourselves to implementing these resolutions, which resolutions came from the summit in 2012 on social cohesion, and strengthening our social cohesion advocates programs, where advocates will be champions rooted in communities not only from a national perspective, but at ground level, where problems in hospitals, in hotspots, can be communicated to the department and the people on the ground. Furthermore, our social cohesion advocates program would enable us to integrate them into our national days programs and have more of their involvement in the DAC programs in order to make their advocates relevant for people on the ground. We have some of the social cohesion advocates here with us today. On Mzansi Golden Economy, this is the basic architecture of the Mzansi Golden Economy has been established. We will shortly issue a call for the database service providers for government as a step to empowering people. The second step is for government to provide opportunities for people captured in the database. An integral component of the incubator program and Mzansi Golden Market is the establishment of a fully fledged venture capital fund within 2015-2016 budget year. We will invest 20 million rands to kickstart this process for those young people who aspire to have a name in arts and culture. We also had a study, and based on that study, the National Museum in Bloemfontein, which houses Oliver Ney's Art Museum, was identified as the most appropriate host of the pilot of the organization. The Art Bank will procure artworks and host a national exhibition to encourage government and private sector players to rent these works. We have our flagship programs throughout the country, 22 of them, all in all, and amongst them is the National Arts Festival, the Cape Town International Jazz Festival, and a range of regional festivals, such as Kalahari Desert in Northern Cape, Makufe in Free State, and others. Through an ongoing monitoring and evaluation program using surveys and other instruments, the department has been able to determine the impact of some of these events on the local economy. Some of the most interesting findings of this research are, amongst others, one, local audiences in most cases represent up to 50% and more of the audience base, demonstrating that these festivals and events provide significant opportunities for locally based communities to access arts and culture. The events provide significant opportunities for domestic tourists as well. A very high number of these visitors were repeat customers of the festivals, and average 95% indicated that they would return for the festival in the following year. Overall, based on the research, the National Arts Festival contributed 138.4 million rands to the local economy, consistent with the festival's own research, and Cape Town International Jazz Festival contributed 129.2 million rand. Makufe contributed 64.3 million rands to the economy of Bloemfontein, and Marula contributed 20.8 million rands to the local economy of Phalaborwa, Mpumalanga. Comes Alive contributed 11 million rands in Mbombela. So all these things are about local economic development in the true sense of the word. We have also what is called creative arts incubators, which we announced that we'll start with them last year in our budget vote last year. And to date, we have launched 3 of those out of 9 provinces. And the work continues. On May the 20th, we'll be launching the State Theatre. And in June, the Market Theatre and Playhouse Company incubators. The total of these incubators are 408 so far And these incubators are a very important tool to ensure that we create local content and unleash economic potential for the creative sector. On the film industry, the film treaties which we have had with Algeria and Nigeria both will be signed this year. We are also in cooperation with Western Sahara for the same outcome. We won't mention a number of countries in the continent and internationally which we spoke about last year. Over 80% of the annual budget of the department goes to the entities, 26 of them. The governance and monitoring of the work of these entities is a major focus of the department. In the year under review, a sector-wide strategic planning framework developed in 2013-2014 was implemented through a series of sector-based workshops that culminated in a large strategic planning session involving the DAC. The future of the entities themselves will depend on how they have worked during this period as we move to the review of the white paper. Sibuye senza-ke ucwaningo kuzwelonke, samemezela ukuthi sizobe siqedela ucwaningo lokuhlahla indlela lukazwelonke. Manje lolu hlelo sesiluqedile, lolu cwaningo lusibonisa izinto eziningi eziqhamuke kulo, amongst others, and some of the significant findings of this mapping study include the fact that the sector contributed over 90.5 billion rands to the South African economy in 2013-2014 and created employment and created over 560,000 employment for people, the majority of whom are below the age of 35. For comparison, agriculture contributed 2.2 to the GDP and tourism 7% to the GDP. The sector also contributed 24 billion rands to the fiscus. The study further confirmed that the sector has a significant role to play in the empowerment of Black South Africans, women and young people, with over 50% enterprises owned by Black South Africans. We also want to report here that, as you know, that we suspended the then Director General of the Department of Arts and Culture, primarily because of how the AG was scathing in his report about how we are handling the fiscus. And as a result of that, the process is continuing. So much has been said even in the papers. The process is open and people have been appointed. It is a forensic process audit, and they will await for the outcome of that. We also have PanSALP. PanSALP has been with problems from its inception. This is a very important body. It's a body responsible for the languages in the country. And the perennial problem in this body has been the internal fights, legal fights within the body itself. We have interacted with the people of PanSALP, especially the board, and we have mapped the way forward for them that they should follow. Otherwise, if things are not working as they're supposed to, we'll see what else can we do. But we'll do everything in our power to ensure that PanSALP is what it's supposed to be because of the importance of language in our society. On the issue of our cultural diplomacy, our current work on cultural seasons will feed into BRICS Summit in July this year, and we will shortly also be releasing the Luthuli documentary in memory of our struggle heroes. We continue to support Africa World Heritage Fund, and to this end, the President has pledged $1 million from the Department of Arts and Culture and the Department of Environmental Affairs. On Africa Month, Africa Month program is a festival of ideas expressed through cultural and artistic exchange. It is about using African Cultural Renaissance Charter to promote AU Agenda 23 for the integration of the continent. This is a vibrant and dynamic integration on socio-political, cultural, and economic matters. Our theme is, We Are Africa, opening the doors of learning and culture to promote peace and friendship from Cape to Cairo. This is a deliberate program for South Africans to reconnect and unite with the rest of the continent. The program is unfolding throughout the country in all the 9 provinces of this beautiful land. We are celebrating the role of the OAU in decolonizing the continent from its formation in May 1963. We are also post facto celebrating the decade since the launch of the AU in 2002. Our government's program on Africa Month is practically sharing Africa's richness through intellectual stimulation and development by our continent's intelligentsia, scholars, and activists. These people, amongst others, include Ben Okri, Piti Kantuli, Keurapitse Khositsile Mongane Serote, Kole Omotoso, Siposiepe Mushenkondo, Matole Motsecha, Herik Garuba, Sean Filiun, Andres Oliphant, Nuruddin Farah, and others. We are as well using dance, music, drama, poem in celebrating our Africanness. We are Africa. The month program will be an annual event whose overall objective is to educate our people about the continent and the diaspora. It is through such long-term and sustained programs that will succeed in undermining all the intolerances, be they xenophobia, racism, homophobia, you name them. This is beyond condemnation of one form of intolerance or the other. We take this opportunity to thank all the South Africans who took a stand and showed the world who truly are we as South Africans, that we are not xenophobic people. The true South African narrative is about opening the doors of learning and culture to promote peace, friendship from Cape to Cairo. And as we said, we are African. We reported last year about the intention to build the Heroes' Acre. This is in line with the preamble of the Constitution of the Republic, which enjoins us to honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land. This national monument will pay homage to protagonists, the warriors, and the gladiators of the pre-colonial era, the wars of resistance, the Liberation War, and many other heroes. Hundreds of statues will be erected in this area to represent different epochs and different leaders of our nation. And we are working on this with the government of Gauteng and the city of Tshwane. Our plans are that the sword turning would happen during the Heritage Month, which is September. Ladies and gentlemen, the Liberation Heritage Route is a work in progress of ensuring that we do not forget where we come from. The route to our liberation would be important to enact. We also, on this score of heritage, can report here today that we had a consultative meeting which was occasioned by the debate around statues, but we sought to broaden the scope to deal with the heritage landscape in our country. And we came up with the resolutions. All the political parties represented in this parliament were invited, and other organizations, civil society organizations. We came out with the resolutions there, and we have appointed a team of experts to ensure that we fast-track and accelerate transformation of our heritage landscape, because that has to happen. Our heritage landscape has to be transformed. People have to look at our heritage through the prism of the heroes and heroines of our people. And on the repatriation, we reported again last year and committed ourselves that we'll bring home the remains of the renowned journalist who died in New York in 1965, Ned Nagasa. Before his death, he labeled himself a native of nowhere, for he could not return to his motherland. On his return in August 2014, we boldly declared that he is no longer a native of nowhere, but a true South African patriot, an African, and a citizen of the world. It was in the same budget vote that we mentioned yet another process of bringing back home from Russia the remains of the great leaders of our people, Malume Moses Kotane and Uncle J.P. Marx. They were repatriated back in their ancestral land in March this year. And paying tribute to Malume Kotane, His Excellency President Zuma had this to say, and I quote, "We are laying to rest a towering figure in the liberation struggle. The story of South Africa can never be complete without mentioning this great son of our people," close quote. On J.B. Marx, President Zuma asserted that his success was remarkable in that he managed to mobilize workers from various countries across Southern Africa under one banner and purpose. If we move there, we go to South Africa's role in the project of Timbuktu manuscripts. Officially from 2003, South Africa, through a bilateral agreement with Mali, embarked on a project to assist with the preservation of the ancient manuscript in Timbuktu. The focus of the agreement was the Ahmed Baba Institute, a government entity charged with the collection of and preservation of approximately 30,000 manuscripts, the majority of which were in serious need of repair. The department has managed the implementation of this agreement through the National Archives. The Timbuktu Manuscript Trust was established to manage mostly the fundraising and the construction of a new building in this very institute. Other activities South Africa would be involved in are training, digitization, and awareness. From a preservation perspective, the ancient manuscripts are at risk from weather conditions and of late with the wars which are taking place there. In discussion with the Institute official, Mr. Gaba Traore, it has been confirmed that conservation laboratory is functional with 3 conservators working there. However, added to damage from the rebels, the building has also suffered neglect as it has not been maintained properly and requires remedial work to be done. Madam Chair, I want to conclude by saying that as a reflection of the future we want, arts and culture is therefore an expression of convergences between social groupings that had been artificially torn apart by the construction of racial categories coinciding in large measure with social and economic division during colonialism and apartheid. Ours is the task to unrelentingly losing the grip of the past on our future. It is a formidable but historically important task. Mosebetsi wa rona ke sebetsa se tlosang ditlwaelo tsa mehleng bokamosong ba rona. Ke mosebetsi o thata, empa ho ya ka history ke wa bohlokwa. Ke a leboha.
Leboga go menagane tona. Honorable members order, I just want to address our guests in the gallery and members of the public. We welcome you, and your presence here is highly appreciated. The unfortunate thing is that we have rules in this parliament aimed at upholding the decorum of the House that expect of you to resume an observer status. That means you cannot participate in what is happening on the floor, even by clapping of hands. I'm sorry to break the news to you. Sizobiza manje usihlalo wekomiti umhlonishwa Tom.
Ndiyabulela kakhulu usihlalo obekekileyo. Ndibulisa kumphathiswa, usekela mphathiswa, amalungu ekomiti ajongene nesebe lobugcisa nenkcubeko A-team ke leyo. Amalungu endlu yowiso-mthetho ngokubanzi, osihlalo, namasekela, namalungu ebhodi, amaqumrhu alawula imicimbi ngokuphathiswa lisebe, manene nani manenekazi. Ndibulela ngokungazenzisiyo sihlalo obekekileyo elithuba lokuba ndithi thaca le ngxelo yomsebenzi esiwenzileyo siyikomiti yobugcisa nenkcubeko. Phambi kokuba ndenze loo nto, mandiqale khe ndikhahlele kwisithwalandwe igqala lamagqala, iqhawekazi, uMama Ruth Mumphathi osanduleleyo. Ithandazwe elimisebenzi iyakuhlala ihleli ezingqondweni zethu. Makhe ndicaphule sihlalo obekekileyo kwincwadi kaFidel Castro ethi My Life, kwaye la mazwi ndiwacaphulayo ndiza kuwangqamanisa neemeko esizibona sikuyo ngalo mzuzu. Mama Ruth, I quote, "Current and future generations will continue to soldier on, no matter how great the difficulties may be, fighting tirelessly so that what you fought for and others even died for can be achieved. With even greater energy, we will continue to fight and resist being pulled backwards. We will continue to defeat every imperialist aggression, every lie in their propaganda, every cunning and diplomatic maneuver. We will continue to resist and fight the consequences of the apartheid system, which will someday be defeated by the dignity of South African people, both black and white. Aluta continua qobokazana, phumla ngoxolo, umzamo omhle uzamile, ugqatso ulufezile. Isebe lobugcisa nenkcubeko liqulathe okuninzi kunokuba abantu becinga. Xa ulijongisisa, linazo zonke izinongo ezingenza ukuba umuntu agqibelele. Kunjalo nje, liyaphendula kwimigomo eliqela ebekwe phambili ngulo rhulumente we-African National Congress. Xa besiqwalasela siyikomiti, sibonile ukuba izicwangciso zesebe ziyahambelana noxanduva eliwunikiweyo kumgaqo-siseko woMzantsi Afrika, ubeka umnwe kwimicimbi yeelwimi nenkcubeko, ukufumana ulwazi ngendlela efanelekileyo, kanti nakwezemfundo. Umsebenzi owenziwa leli sebe namaqumrhu ancedisayo usekelezwe kwisahluko se-15 kumqulu kazwelonke wezicwangciso zophuhliso. Umqulu wenkululeko nawo kumhlathi othi, "The doors of learning and culture shall be opened." Uqhube uthi, ndiyacaphula, "The government shall discover, develop, and encourage national talent for the enhancement of our cultural life. All the cultural treasures of mankind shall be opened to all by free exchange of books, ideas, and contact with other lands. The aim of education shall be to teach the youth to love their people and their culture, to honor human brotherhood, liberty, and peace. Uxanduva olujanyelwe leli sebe sihlalo obekekileyo kukuba yenze lento kuluntu olwafundiswa ukuzithiya, ukuzicekisa, ukuzisingela phansi. Lentiyo nokuzicekisa yayijoliswe kuyo yonke into enokwenza nobuthina. Amasiko ethu nezithethe zethu zafakwa ityheneba nomdintsi. Yenziwe lento ngendlela apha eyenza safuna ukucezela kwizinto zethu. Yiyo lento namhlanje sibona lo mbhodamo siwubonayo. Ibuyambo ibalulekile ukuze sifunde ukuzithanda nokuzihlonipha, sikwazi ke ngoko ukuhlonipha abanye abantu. Kwintetho yakhe yobume besizwe umongameli ohloniphekileyo umnumzana J.G. Zuma uchaphazele umcimbi wenkcubeko, kunjalo nje esitsho ukuthi kulonyaka mali uza kunikwa ingqwalasela. Kulomsebenzi isebe liwenzayo liwenza namaqumrhu angama-26. Isixa njengoko seletshila umphathiswa esingama-80 ekhulwini inikwa lamaqumrhu. Into ke leyo ethetha ukuba isebe malifune indlela eziluqilima zokulandela imali lezi ikhuphayo. Siyibethelele ke lento siyikomiti ukuba asixolanga yindlela ekusetyenzwa ngayo nalamaqumrhwana ancedisa isebe. Kodwa ke isebe liwenzile amatile-tile okuba amise icandelo eliza kujongana ncakasana nalomba sithetha ngawo. Siyiqhwabela izandla ke loo nto. Kuyo yonke lento sihlalo bekekileyo kukho intsoma-ntsomane kaPan South African Language Board. Eli qumrhu liqumrhu elibalulekileyo kakhulu njengoba ebesetshila umphathiswa. Singalamalungu ekomiti ayikho into esingayenzanga, kwaye ayikho into esingazukuyenza ukuqinisekisa ukuba eli qumrhwana linguPansalp lenza umsebenzi walo ngendlela efanelekileyo. Sifuna isisombululo sikanaphakade kulomba, not isisombululo sethutyana. Amathala olwazi, ii-archives kumakhumsha, amathala encwadi, ii-libraries kumakhumsha, amaziko olondolozo lwendalo engasaphiliyo, nemiboniso esikhumbuza ngemvelaphi yethu, ii-museums kumakhumsha, amaziko emidlalo yeqonga, imiboniso bhanya-bhanya, njalo njalo ziphantsi kweli sebe. La maziko ke ebekade ebhexeshwa sisandla esingqwabalala sobandlululo nentswela bulungisa. Kodwa ngoku isebe lizama ukuba utshintshe indlela ekusetyenzwa ngayo, lizise umbono womZantsi ka-Afrika omtsha. Kunzima ke ukuguqula ingqondo nendlela abantu abaqhele ukuziphatha ngayo. Akululanga ukwakha Honorable Chairperson, since the 2015-16 budget was tabled together with the 2015-16 annual performance plan and the 2015 to 2020 strategic plan, the Portfolio Committee on Arts and Culture interrogated it extensively. We invited the department to do a presentation on their key strategic goals and priorities and to explain in detail how they would spend their budget. I would like, Honorable Chairperson, to thank the members of the Portfolio Committee that are committed to see the department succeed. They go beyond the call of duty. This they do merely because they understand that the success of the department is the success of the nation, especially the people that we are representing in this august house. As a chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, I would also like to thank the members of the Management Committee for their hard work. They really are a formidable team. They also go out of their way to do their work. Ndithi kuni nonke maze nethole. I would also like to thank the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the Acting DG, and the officials. Ibichisi komiti ngamanye amaxesha kuba sibuza imibuzo yoyikekayo kodwa neza nazo impendulo eningezanga nazo sizawulandela. Niyayazi ke into ba thina ayipheli into siyithetha. Ndiyabulela.
Siyabulela sihlalo wekomiti. Sebakeng sena re tlo mema motlhomphegi Rabotapi a tswetse puo pele.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo. Re rata go simolola ka go romela matshidiso a rona go ba lelapa le masika o Ramompati. Modulasetulo, ntlo e tlotlegang mmogo le ditokololo tse di tlotlegang, tona le motlatsa tona ba ba tlotlegang, baeng botlhe sa megolona ke madume. Re kokwane fa gompieno mabapi le tekanyetsokabo ya bogareng ya Lefapha la Ngwao le Setso ka setso e le mokokotlo wa setšhaba sengwe le sengwe. Mogologolo ga na bua ka setso o na kare pelo e senang phufa selo ya bo e se sa yone. Kgotsa a tswelela ka gore nna ke le mashi ke phepa ke le esi se labe sona se tla le motsa khamelo. Honorable Chairperson, the DA regards the preservation and maintenance of our rich and diverse culture as vital for the emergence of a united, tolerant, and self-confident nation. The Department of Arts and Culture plays a critical role in this regard. Therefore, South Africans cannot afford for such an important national department to be badly managed. Art can help to build appreciation for different perspectives and deepen understanding for the different experiences of being South African. And this is why this department is vitally important. According to the Department of Arts and Culture, its mission is to enhance job creation by preserving, protecting, and developing arts, culture, and heritage to sustain our democracy and build our nation. But if you compare this mission with the performance of the department, there is clearly no connection. Currently, there is no strategy to promote artists and artistic expression. Outstanding policy on the monitoring of the implementation of the Use of Official Languages Act 12 of 2012 is also an issue that requires the minister's attention. It is clear that Minister Mthethwa has done little to give clear direction to this department. House Chair, this department is underperforming. There are many examples of this. Entities such as Robben Island and the Nelson Mandela Museum in Qunu are but two. This severe underperformance of the Nelson Mandela Museum is tantamount to dragging the name of the icon, Utatu Nelson Mandela, through the mud and is unacceptable. Another example is the inability of the department to effectively implement the use of Official Languages Act. The DA believes that priority must be given to implementing the use of Official Languages Act within its entities, departments, ministries, and especially in schools and tertiary institutions. Yet another example of poor management, which I spoke of last year, is the performance of Arts Center of the Free State, which is still plowed by mismanagement. Poor financial planning is at the heart of this department's failures. The department's budget for 2015-16 financial year is almost 4 billion. With this budget, the department could do much better. The department and its entities have recorded an increase in irregular expenditures during the 2013 and 14 financial year. A comprehensive review of the mandates and efficacy of different entities reporting to the department, as well as the institutions created by the Constitution to protect and promote cultural, artistic, and linguistic diversity, needs to be conducted. The results of this review can be used to streamline institutions, to clarify their mandates, and to make sure that funding allocations effectively support national priorities. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure increased by 106% between 2012 and 2014. In the financial year ending 28 February 2014, the irregular expenditure is disclosed at 171 million. This is of great concern, as it illustrates that the department and its entities do not follow the correct internal control measures. Essentially, they are wasting money that could be put to good use in creating jobs and promoting social cohesion. This money could have been used to support budding artists who all too often never get the opportunity to study their craft and develop into renowned artists because of poverty and financial constraints. The department could have used this money to set up much-needed art centers in rural areas to give our children an opportunity to express their artistic talents. A comprehensive review of the mandates and efficacy of different entities reporting to the department, as well as the institutions created by the Constitution to protect and promote cultural, artistic, and linguistic diversity, needs to be conducted. The results of this review can be used to streamline institutions, to clarify their mandates, and to make sure that funding allocations effectively support national priorities. The mandate of this department is going unfulfilled. How do we achieve togetherness? Harness our collective energies, talents, and creative geniuses to better South Africa when the department given the responsibility to drive this is in shambles. Mudula Stulo, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Retlovitsa Bianung, Honorable Machobeni. Order, honorable members.
Honorable Chair, the first is that from an administrative and oversight point of view, this department is literal fall apart. 8 of the entities reporting to this department presented sloppy annual performance plans to the extent that this committee had to order these entities to rewrite them. By doing nothing to ensure proper financial control in the department and in its entities, the minister and the executive authority must take full responsibility. The second reason we reject this budget is that this department has failed and continues to fail in redefining a new vision of an African country free of colonial constructs. But the ANC did not have to define a new vision for South Africa. A new South Africa was already imagined in 1897 when Enoch Sontonga composed that historic song, Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, locating our struggles and aspirations in a continental context and not merely on a local and regional basis. Nkosi Sikelel' raised black people towards a single vision of freeing our nation and continent from struggle-hold of white supremacy. It became not only a South African song, but a continental one. The continuation of Nkosi Sikelel' by this stem, an African war song in the national anthem, is a negation of all struggles waged by black people over many centuries. The inclusion of this stem in our national anthem is a celebration of white superiority and continues to give white people the wrong impression
honorable members,
that they are superior and blacks are inferior.
You are now drowning the speaker. I can't even hear from this point. Order. Continue, madam.
Thank you, Speaker. It cuts off our consciousness that we are also part of the African continent. It is for this reason that we have black South African killing blacks from other parts of the continent. You must take personal responsibility, Minister, for this. You have cut off South African from the rest of Africa. It is for this reason that we also support the call for removal of all the symbols of colonialism and apartheid to replace them with statues of the likes of Enoch Sontonga, Vuyisile Mini, and many others. More fundamentally, we reject this budget because it does very little to start a process of repositioning this department and the arts and culture industry generally into a growth sector. A nation such as Nigeria has developed its film and video making industry into a multi-billion-dollar industry, producing over 2,500 films a year and employing over 1 million of people who are telling African stories to African people. In South Africa, not more than 100 films that produced per year, and only 11% of the films shown are South African. Even in that 11%, a very small percentage tells story from the perspective of black South African, for black South Africans. This department, through this budget, is showing us that it is just business as usual and introduces no significant changes in the manner of doing things. You are suggesting no new changes that are needed to claim our culture and heritage and use that to drive economic development. The state must design a state-of-the-art recording studio for use of African artists at no cost. This studio must produce pan-African content to show and celebrate our life experience as blacks. We want 75% of music played on South African radios to be South African music.
Round up, honorable member.
We demand the recognition of the Khoi and San languages as an official language in South Africa. Many deaf children are not attending school due to lack of sign language medium school closer to them, which is really sad. We cannot support a budget vote that does not take
Honorable member,
into account.
your time
We
has
reject
expired.
this budget. Thank you.
Order, honorable members. Order. Achtbare lid Esther Reisen. Vat die debat voor. Order, honorable members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable Chair, Although this government stated it values the contribution of the cultural industry to the national economy, not enough is done to recognize these creative industries as a core of the creative economy. To broaden the base of arts and culture to embrace future cultural development in this country, this department needs greater financial assistance through this budget process. Through art, we can assist in establishing appreciation for different perspectives and cultures in this country and find a common ground around which to celebrate our mutual South Africanism. This government has stated many times that it promotes a transformative national agenda and accepts that the past cannot and should not be completely deleted. This is to avoid a repetition of the same mistakes out of ignorance of what has happened before. Tearing down and defacing statues and monuments is not supportive of this and will only cause greater intolerance, racial and cultural polarization. The minister recently stated that heritage sites and national monuments have cultural significance and values because of their importance to a community in revealing a pattern of South African history. We are also of the strong opinion that traditional leaders who are the primary custodians of cultural heritage and practices in our traditional society are not being given a prominent enough role to play within the mandate of this department. There is in fact no fixed partnership between this department and the House of Traditional Leaders, not nationally or provincially, and this must be corrected through the necessary assistance and funding. Honourable Chair, South Africa's economy is one of the largest on this continent, but its contribution to the creative industries through this budget process leaves a great deal to be desired. We would like to see more funding available for exhibitions and investments in the arts and greater funding for the exposure to the burgeoning tourism trade for rural choirs and music groups. Through tourism, arts and crafts has been identified as one of the main drivers of a sustainable economic opportunities and income generators for local communities and rural districts, while expanding business opportunities for small, medium, and micro enterprises. These small communities and industries must be supported through the continued advertising and marketing assistance of this department and the limited funds available. Department spending also must be subject to stringent checks and balances. It happened before. R1 million departmental car rental account is excessive and extreme, and there cannot be any real justification for that. In closing, I would like to state that art is important for the awakening and imagination of the nation, enriching our lives and compelling us to think in new ways while honouring the old ways. And to accomplish this, we need the assistance of all South Africans. Therefore, the IFP supports this budget.
Thank you. I now call upon the Honourable Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, Speaker, Minister Mtetwa, ministers who are here with us, and Deputy Ministers, Honourable Members, Chairpersons and Chief Executives of public entities, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A prolific Nigerian woman author, Bushi Emecheta, once said, I quote, "I usually make sure that my stories are from Africa or my own background so as to highlight the cultural background at the same time as telling the story," I close quote. Our work contributes to the creation of a literate society envisaged in the National Development Plan, wherein every community has a school, teachers who love teaching and learning, a local library filled with a wealth of knowledge, and a librarian. Through the conditional grant for community library, 13 libraries have been built in the Eastern Capes, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and Mpumalanga, Northwest. Lomanyaneng and at Tlokeng, Western Cape also. 7 libraries were upgraded in the Eastern Cape, Mthatha and Port Alfred, Free State, Tolopile, and also Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Through this conditional grant, we have created jobs for young people, amongst others, procured furniture, free internet access, improved service delivery for the visually impaired, and educational toys. Through the Mzansi Library Online, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the National Library of South Africa has installed IT equipment to 27 libraries, composed of 20 computers, 10 e-readers, 10 tablets, 1 printer and a scanner on each of these libraries. This means that our communities, visually impaired people and children, are connected to the world. We also provide 5 modular libraries as a short-term intervention whilst awaiting the building for permanent structure at the Lichobu Secondary School, Makado, in Makado Kuvi, and Turamela. We've got one at Masisi, which is in Mtaro, Nsaku, Matsikali, and in Tulamela and Tima Moholo in Maruleng Municipality. The 2014-15 World Book Day took place in Northern Cape and Gauteng on the 22nd, 23rd of April, respectively. We conducted door-to-door reading awareness campaigns, and we donated 12,400 books to schools, households, old age homes, and correctional services. In our midst, we are joined by Silindoku Hlezwane, a 11-year-old grade 6 learner at Injongo Primary School. She read 60 books in the year 2014 from Harare Community Library in Kaita. She's here. May you stand up. Silindoku, stand up. Pakama mtana. There she is. She read 60 books, 60. Through our partnership between National Library Center for the Book and Department of Correctional Services, we hosted a very successful Funda Mzansi Championship from the 6th to the 8th of October 2014 in George. Funda Mzansi Championship is a reading competition designed, aimed at creating an opportunity for the book clubs to compete against each other. In our effort to promote reading in indigenous languages, promote social cohesion and cultural understanding among South Africans, reprinted classics titles are now translated into South African indigenous languages. 18 titles have been identified for this project. For example, South Africans will be able to read Sepedi or isiZulu classics in their home language. Nguni Group's classics are cross-translated to Sotho and Tswana Group. We will also be driving projects to introduce Braille into libraries for the blind. A pilot project will be implemented with the South African Library for the Blind to employ speech technology to make written documents accessible in 4 languages to people who cannot read or who are blind. We are preparing to host the 81st International Federation of Libraries Conferences and Assembly in August 2015, which will be held in Cape Town under the theme, Dynamic Libraries, Access, Development, and Transformation. This conference will attract more than 3,000 librarians from across Africa and worldwide. Given the importance of archives as a repository of the collective memory to the nation, recapitalizing the National Archives will be one of our national priorities this year. We are presently dealing with the funding implications of this project through our budget reprioritization process. As part of African Month activities, we launched the National Archives Week in Polokwane under the theme, Archives Our Living Past. I'm sorry, I've got the flu. The campaign came after a decision was taken in the year 2006 by International Council on Archives conference that countries should popularize the profession and educate communities around the importance of archives in the preservation of societal memory. And we also have got bursaries. We're encouraging the youth that they see to be an archivist, you have to study. Ndeme ya ubulunga zwitu uri zvisingalangale ayatu udiwa ngabunji na vatu ngamanda mashangoni ane akobvelela anokobvelela vatu vane vashuma ubulunga zwitu zopambanaho bana khaedu ya u vhona uri vhathu vha ya wana ngudo khazo na u ḓidzhenisa kha mushumo wa u vhulunga zwithu u itela mirafho i ḓaho. Naho ho no ḓivha na khunguwedzo nga vhavhulungi vha vhufa hu tshe na zwinzhi zwine zwa khou fanela u itwa nga zwiimiswa zwo fhambananaho. Mahoḽa ro fara khuvhangano ya ṅwaha na ṅwaha ya vhufumi nthihi ya lushaka ya nga ḓivhazwakale i songo ṅwaliwaho fhethu, National Oral History Conference, we had it last year, ḓoroboni ya Johannesburg. Ḓivhazwakale yeneyo ndi ya ndeme malugana na u elelwa zwo no fhiraho hu tshi katelwa u bveledza vhuthihi na matshilisano. I ya thusa vhukuma kha vhagudiswa uri vha kone u ḓivha uri ndi vhone vho nnyi, u ḓivha nga tsinde na matavhi a lushaka lwa havho, zwine hafhu zwa vha na ndeme ya vha thusa na uri vha ḓivhe mitupo yavho. We will host the 2015 Oral History Conference, will be held in KwaZulu-Natal from the 13th to the 16th of October, noted, with the theme Freedom Charter, Memories and Other UN Freedoms. After the agreement between Department and French, the l'Institut National de l'Audiovisuel was signed on the 20th December 2013. The first batch of dictabells was couriered to Paris, France on the 12th, 2014. I'm learning French. The collection has been inaccessible for the past 50 years due to the old technology that was used to record the proceedings of this landmark case in history of South Africa. The project will be completed by April 2016, and all South Africans will be able to hear the voices of all the Rivonia trialists, of whom now are left with only two, Comrade Mlangen and Comrade Kathrada. During the celebration of the World Day for Audiovisual Heritage, we renamed the Craiglia building as Dolly Ratebe building, Milkboard building utilized by National Film, Video and Sound Archives, renamed as Ken Gampu Film Preservation Center. The National Language Services will continue to develop terminology in the following domains: information and communication technology, life orientation terminology, human, social, economic and management sciences terminology, and mathematics terminology. In February 2015, we celebrated International Mother Tongue Day, which were attended by language practitioners, learners, and community members at the University of Limpopo. Through our bursary scheme, we provided 522 bursaries to aspiring language practitioners in the last financial year. It means that we are supporting they are in the 15 different universities, these 522. In our efforts to ensure integration of arts, culture, and heritage in the school curriculum, we are implementing the following projects in schools: in pursuit of the national identity, patriotism, love of our country, nation building, and social cohesion. The department continues to install flags in schools since the inception of this campaign. We have already installed 22,193 flags, which were hosted in the schools across the country. This campaign involves hoisting the national flag in the school, the correct etiquette of singing the national anthem, the recital of the preamble of the Constitution, the distribution of hand-held flags, passport are these ones, the little book, which has got the AU anthem at the end.
Deputy Minister.
Those are passports.
That's round up.
Okay. Well, we are joined by Kate Kabe from Pretoria Girls High School. May you please stand up, Kabe? Yes. Who won the essay competition, which was conducted during our visit to the schools. I'm sure the portfolio committee was there. And one of what we are promoting is the singing of the national anthem. We've got the CD, sing it correctly.
Thank you.
An amount of 9.3 million was allocated for artists in schools in the year 2014 financial year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now call upon Honorable Mabiga.
Honorable Chairperson, members and distinguished guests, the Department of Arts and Culture has a very important mandate to steer South Africa towards a diverse yet cohesive society where we all share a common identity. Through our arts and our culture, we look to the past and to the future. Our heritage and our national identity is reflected in our arts and our culture. Our pain and our joy entwined as preserve and grow. The National Freedom Party welcomes the 6.3% increase in the 3.9 billion rand budget allocated to the department. We also note the modest allocation of 244 million for Program 1, which makes provision for the administration of the department. This means that the bulk of the budget is allocated towards executing the mandate of the department and providing for the entities which report to the department and must be commended. The administration of the department is, however, underperforming. Nomination processes have not commenced for councils which have already expired or are about to expire. And the department has floundered in its obligation to provide oversight for 3 entities which report to it to write and develop strategic plans. Annual reports for several councils reporting to the department as required by legislation have not yet been tabled timeously, and critical appointments within the department remain delayed. Unfortunately, the administration of the department also has a history of irregular, wasteful, and fruitless expenditure. Had ballooned from almost zero in 2009 to about 171 million in 2013-2014. It is obvious that internal control mechanisms within the department and its entities are insufficient. The much publicized forensic investigation announced by the Minister of Arts and Culture last year in November seems to have fizzled out, and speculation is rife that it was no more than smokescreen for getting rid of former Director General Sibusiso Xaba, confidant of the former minister, and paving the way for the appointment of Minister Mthethwa's personal advisor, Vuyo Jack. This chairperson happened despite the Public Service Commission's concern expressed last year about what it said was a worrying tendency among ministers to appoint advisors to responsible positions in their ministries or departments. When political interference occurs in such a not so subtle way in the top management of the department, alarm bells should be rung loud and clear, because the lack of administrative performance will be perpetuated in the absence of continuity. Finally, Chairperson, the National Freedom Party is concerned about 11.8% decrease in the allocation for the National Language Services, a sub-program provided for in the Arts and Culture Promotion and Development Program. This sub-program is supposed to promote the use and equal status of all official languages, and a decrease in the allocation means that this particular function will falter. The NFP spoke out against the lack of indigenous language equality and use in the courts during the budget vote on the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and we express our concern here too. Our indigenous languages are still not getting their rightful recognition 21 years after we have achieved our liberty. And it is the responsibility of the Department of Arts and Culture to champion this cause. Chairperson, having said all that, we will support this budget as the National Freedom Party, though.
Thank you very much. We now call upon Honorable Mogotsi.
Modula Situlo ya Khabane, letona le motlatsa letona, dintho tse hlomphehileng tsa lekgotla la ho etsa molao, batsamaisi ba lefapha, setjhaba ka kakaretso, dumelang. Let me behold and try to build on some of the themes as they were expressed by President Nelson Mandela on his inauguration in 1994. The time of healing of the wound has come. The moment of the breach and the charms that divided us has come, and the time to build is upon us. We must therefore act together as a united people for reconciliation, for the nation building, for the birth of the new world, which is South Africa. Honorable Chairperson, as we deliberate whether the National Assembly should pass the budget of the Department of Arts and Culture, I want to remind everyone present in this august sitting that ours is not all about supporting or rejecting the budget, but rather it's about continuing the roadmap that was laid by the people of South Africa when they pay with their lives. When they pay with their lives to free this nation. It is also continuation of the foundation that was laid by those voters overwhelming of the African National Congress. Therefore, Chairperson, African National Congress has a moral responsibility to their voters. Its mandate is to build a nation whose foundation was laid in 1994. It might be important to give the historical background about the Department of Arts and Culture. We know that previously we never had the Department of Arts and Culture, but after 1994 we had it. As earlier as 1912, when the ANC was formed, one of the major concerns was the extent of which colonialism has degraded the dignity of indigenous people. Like myself, I'm a black person. Africans, colored, and the Khoisan people. It is within the ANC that these marginalized find a political home to express themselves, politically and organizationally. The year 1955 was a turning point for the ANC and its alliance to mobilize the people of South Africa to express their view about the future of Africa, that what they envisage. The product of it was the Congress of the People, but Chairperson, not this Congress of the People of 3 people that we see, the real Congress of the People, which was endorsed by the Freedom Charter in giving a greater content in meaning of the freedom, national liberation, and self-determination of Africans, giving a detailed substance. The Congress slogan was freedom in our lifetime. Not the one that the freedom in our lifetime that we see now, but we talk about the history. South Africans were very clear and eloquent that they wanted the country to open doors of learning and culture, a country where the culture, treasure, and mankind that shall open to all whites, not Indians, not colored, but all South African. We are Africans. Comrade, Chairperson, Karl Marx once said, revolution is a locomotive of history. So what we said, we're taking it from the back 60 years ago, not now. So, Chair, as the ANC, we are very clear where we are going. When the ANC was unbanned in 1990, we find that South Africa had been stripped of their culture, dignity, and values. We know that. We recommended ourselves that when we govern, ANC, and we're still even in government, that South African will receive what is due to them, the dignity as the people. It is for that when the ANC received overwhelming majority in 1994 till today, that's why we are having this department. Therefore, we are not just debating, but we are building the nation and a proud nation. Honorable Chairperson, the report of National Development Commission, now I'm getting into the department as a member of the committee, as a member of the ANC, who's always present in the committee and standing. we find that many significant progress was made since 1994. It is also noted that racism and prejudice has declined, and we have definitely more interaction as equal between blacks and white and the whole of South Africa. Despite that progress, we remain a divided society. We know in Western Cape we are divided. The major division line is on the race. To resolve this and the past broadening economical opportunities for more people, particularly the black people that were marginalized. The National Development Plan Vision 2030, we know this is one of our economic policy, gear all of us together to achieve a goal every South African will have since in inclusion. A country whose people will have an increased interaction between the citizens from the different social and racial groups. A country whose state values will be shared by all those who based in the Constitution and Ubuntu. And we know that South Africa Constitution is the very best constitution around the world. Honorable Chairperson, the department managed 30 entities. I hear that they say there are no governance structure and everything. So I don't know where these 30 entities come from. And the board and the statutory bodies that play a very pivotal role in managing these entities and in building social cohesion. The exhibition that mounted this department around us, there's a museum called Iziko. It's there. There's Ditong, Robben Island. And we know that Robben Island was highly criticized in terms of their financial, but now it's very clear that their audit is very clean, and people can go to the AG and ask, they will give them that information. Nelson Mandela and Little Museum and many others are all placed in.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. Thank you very much.
Hashtag ANC support this vote. Hashtag no to xenophobia. Hashtag we are South Africans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Noe Group Akbara Lede Miller.
Chairperson, one of the tasks of this department is social cohesion and nation building. How is this done? Can one force nation building through legislation and obligatory actions? Sir, no, one cannot. People who do not want to pay tax can be forced by fining them and prosecuting them until they pay taxes. People who do not obey rules, road rules, can be forced with fines and speed traps. But the previous government could not force Mr. Mandela to think like them, even though they kept him in jail for decades. Sir, in the same way, this government cannot force me, as a South African, as an Afrikaner, or any minority group, to accept the nation-building recipe if we do not agree with it. Successful nation-building has to be voluntary, otherwise it will not succeed. That is why I say that this department's task to make social cohesion and nation-building succeed is more difficult than any other department's task. Sir, the ANC struggle history is an important part of South Africa's history. It is, however, only part of South Africa's history, which stretches from the establishment of the ANC in 1912 to 1994. There's also the Khoi and the Sons struggle history. There's the Griqua struggle history. The Afrikaner struggle history against the British, and many more, where my people were killed for their freedom. At present, the ANC struggle history is commemorated on every national day. We only hear speeches about that, not about anything else. The rest is ignored or kept silent. Let me give another example. In my hometown, Potchefstroom, the city council's policy during the last 100 years, and I was a councillor there, was that no street would be named after a political figure. There isn't a Verwoerd, a Forster, or a P.W. Botha street in my town. Only persons who had made a contribution to the town were named in street names. After the ANC took over, this was changed. The streets are now only named after ANC heroes. The PAC approached me and complained that their heroes, such as Robert Sobukwe, did not have street names named after them. the Khoi people came to me and asked what about their heroes like Achumau. The Afrikaners came to me and demanded their heroes such as Cyril de Wet or de la Rey should now also get street names. Sir, the same goes for statues.
Order, honorable members. Can you give the member an opportunity to debate?
It is important that statues should reflect our whole history. One cannot have only Afrikaner statues or just ANC struggle heroes and hide the rest of our history as if it did not happen at all. That is why Afrikaners left colonial statues, such as statues of Queen Victoria or Rhodes following their victory in 1948, and they're still around as you see them even at Parliament. Queen Victoria is here. I proposed in 1995 on behalf of the Freedom Front in this Parliament that the statue of President Mandela be added to Parliament. It was enthusiastically accepted by the ANC, but it was never really done up till now with the small one out there. Now, sir, the youth, who have only been raised with ANC struggle history and heroes, and that's all they know the rest of the history, is storming statues of President Kruger, he's my hero, because of what he did in the past, and other heroes from the struggle of the Afrikaners' fight against British imperialism and European colonialism. I tell you, sir, in this way, we cannot accomplish nation building. You cannot force me and other groups with legislation or other actions to relinquish that from the past which is important to us. You can, however, obtain our and other groups' voluntary and enthusiastic cooperation if we feel there is also some space for us and for that which is important to us. Currently, this department is not succeeding in finding that balanced nation-building recipe which will lead to everyone's voluntary cooperation.
Thank you, Akbar Aliad. Thank you very much. Order, honorable member. Session Vitana Mchavseki Bilankulu NK.
Muchavseki mtsamu wa xitulu holobye wa ndzawulo ya vutshila na ndhavuko kulukumba na Timthethwa xandla xa holobye manana Rejoice Mabuda Fasi ba holobye hinkwerhu lava mi nga kona haleni vachaviseki hinkwavo na vayeni va hina va ku hlonipheka ndza mi losa inhlikani. Mtsamu wa xitulu ndzi twa ni xiximiwile swinene na ku titsongahata ku tikuma ndzi ri un'wana wa lava nga eka nxaxamelo wa njhekanjhekisano eka n'hweti leyi ya maAfrika ni ri wansati wa muAfrika hi xiAfrika. Hinkwayo leyi i mintirho ya African National Congress. Na wena Khongolos a wu lontsongo. Ndzi seketela mpimanyeto lowu averiweke ndzawulo ya vutshila na ndhavuko ni rhumiwile hi African National Congress. The ANC 53rd National Conference in Mangaung resolved that arts and culture and heritage play an important role in nation building. The sector can play in contributing to the growth and development of society. Nearly 70 years ago, the newly introduced cruel system of apartheid was fast tightening its grip on the oppressed majority of South Africa, unleashing an epidemic of unthinkable inequality and hardship. As the intensity of institutionalized oppression increased, so too did the intensity of the struggle for freedom. A turning point in the history of the liberation struggle was on the 26th June 1955, when in one of the oldest districts in Soweto, the Freedom Charter, an initiative of the African National Congress, was adopted by the Congress of the People, I mean the African National Congress. This charter was a vision for a united, non-racial, and democratic South Africa, a vision enshrined by our Constitution and a vision that the ANC still passionately champions. Today, as we celebrate the 21 years of democratic South Africa, the ANC government continues to strive tirelessly to improve the quality of life for all citizens. As a nation, we recognize that not only do we face challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality, but that overwhelming legacy of apartheid has left stumbling blocks on the road to achieve inclusive growth and create real work opportunities. We need solutions to address these challenges and to conquer those stumbling blocks. This government has a blueprint to do just that. The recent adoption of the National Development Plan Vision 2030 provides a framework to eliminate poverty, reduce inequality, and foster social cohesion. The Department of Arts and Culture leads the way in ensuring that the vision expressed in the Freedom Charter and echoed by the NDP is realized. Over and above these special responsibilities, the department has committed to develop an arts, culture, and heritage sector that is dynamic and fostered inclusive growth. Honorable Chair, the NDP acknowledges the constitution of cultural and creative industries to job creation. The department's strategies such as Mzansi Golden Economy and the Mzansi Market are important responses to the call for radical socio-economic transformation. Since its introduction in 2011, the Mzansi Golden Economy has created thousands of jobs opportunities in the sector. This achievement has been realized through the department's support of the range of cultural events, exhibitions, and festivals. Furthermore, the department has developed the Mzansi Market to create an enabling environment for the artists to market their product. These strategies to promote job creation and entrepreneurship are central to the important goal to mainstream the participation of the poor, mainly black segment of the population in the economy as set out in the NDP and the ANC 2014 election manifesto. Honorable Chairperson, employment is fundamental to human dignity, sustainable economic development, and social cohesion. By building a stronger South Africa, we build a stronger Africa as endorsed by 2014 election manifesto. It is therefore important that we do all we can to embrace and celebrate Africans. The month of May, Africa May, centers on the call of strengthened continental unity. The work for unity to the continent, however, goes beyond Africa Month. The Department of Arts and Culture has been working hard to reinforce and remind us of the role of Africa as global culture and industrial forerunner. The department is ensuring the rollout of African Union flags, AU Youth and Agenda 2030 document in every school. Furthermore, the department is also hosting the Africa Month Cultural Program. These are just some of the activities undertaken by the department to commemorate our shared Africa heritage. Honorable Chairperson, the Freedom Charter called for the doors of learning and culture to be open. Our late leader, our icon, President Nelson Mandela once said, I quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Through the Community Library Service Grant, the department is tasked to transform the landscape of learning by ensuring the provision of infrastructure, facilities, and services, primarily targeting previous disadvantaged communities. 2.8 billion over the MTEF period is earmarked to construct 69 new libraries and upgrade 165 existing libraries to contribute to making library services accessible to communities. This is an unquestionable commitment to overcome the systematic divisions of apartheid in education and reflects the department's vital role in ensuring every municipality ward is serviced by a library. The National Archives, Honorable Chair, play an essential role in not only educating the nation about its past, but also in supporting redress and transparent government record keeping. In the current financial year, 41.7 million has been set aside for the operations of the National Archives Service. In line with the national building and social cohesion, the archives has become an accessible public resource which documents the lives of citizens who were either excluded from or marginalized in the colonial and apartheid archives. They also importantly serve an important function in areas such as land, restitution, and special pensions, areas that lie close to the process of addressing inequality.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member.
ANC support the budget.
Thank you very much. Call Honorable Mbinda.
Sorry. Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister, Honorable Members, the PAC of Azania would like to plead with this department to please respect and uphold its mandate. Their actions are denying the youth to understand the truth. If they distort the truth, like the racist regime used to do, then we are misleading them. Its distortion is tantamount to its reason. Even in other African states, you will find the statues of Tatu Mandela. But what about the indigenous African liberation leaders, like Thomas Sankara or Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere? Why can't we have statues of them in our country? Why will we only have the statues of those who colonized us and not those of our indigenous African leaders? Ethnic personality and an open clarification of the historical events are a scarce currency in our country. Fundamentally, this is because the authorized records and accounts of political deeds and the historical perspective of apartheid and colonialism are constructed to honor prejudiced political interest. The South African history tells a story that apartheid was declared a crime against humanity, but its perpetrators are still being celebrated in the form of statues, roads, and city names. There cannot be a crime, Honorable Minister, without criminals. Robert Sobukwe, the Pan-Africanist who propagated Africanism and contributed immensely to our liberation, he is the only person throughout the world whom the government made a law to govern him. I must salute the department, obviously, for considering to honor, the heroes, as it was mentioned by the minister. The longest political prisoner, that is the truth in South Africa, is Jafta Masemula, the leader of the PAC. And he was sentenced in 1962, and then he was released in 1989. I think that's free education. We have, even today, people that have fought for the liberation of this country. They were convicted by the then racist regime, but they are still in jail, and they are administered by the current democratic government. How do we explain that to the new generation? The Lion of Azani, our Uncle Zef, Umutuping, who was accused #1, nobody can dispute the Rivonia trial. In 1976, was convicted for 30 years. And how do you explain that when you tell lies that it's not PAC that was behind that? The South African curriculum for an early age teaches our kids the history of the ANC. The biggest problem with xenophobia is our education system. For example, our history is never pronouncing very clear that these borders are man-made and they can be reversed one day. What would geography say about Africa? The PAC would like to know from the minister why it is that these facts are so conveniently left out of the history which is told to our youth. The PAC does not expect this from a country governed by a former liberation movement. Enkosi kakhulu, I support the vote.
Thank you very much. Akbarelet Grootboom.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Leader of the Opposition in his absence, the Honorable Deputy Minister. I am acutely aware of the errors of the apartheid government, and it pains me to see that our government is repeating the very same errors of the previous government by stifling freedom, fairness, and opportunity. And this will become evident as I go through my speech. There is a saying that says, from the errors of others, a wise man corrects his own. And I therefore have to question this government's wisdom. And I will focus only on one small entity to give you a bird's eye view of the whole department and government give you a microcosm view of this. Firstly, kuns en kultuur praat tot die siel van die volk. En hierdie departement is so gesitueer dat dit die klowe tussen kulture en groepe kan brug. Ongelukkig oorskadu onbekwaamhede van hierdie departement hulle suksesse. Just as the Ikuziku museums are success stories, Robben Island Museum, the Performing Arts of the Free State, and the National Arts Language Services, and PANSOP in particular, are failures. PANSOP is a Chapter 1 institution, and based on the statutory guidelines, no organ of state may interfere. And this entity has repeatedly simply ignored calls for timely submission of annual performance plans and annual reports, and I think the Minister aptly acknowledged this. PANSOP believes that the Portfolio Committee has no jurisdiction over it, only the Minister. Maar agbare lede, wat gebeur tans by hierdie entiteit? Binnen 3 jaar het die personeelkomponent met 49% gegroei. Die auditeur-generaal het hulle gedistansieer om opinie te gee. Hulle administratiewe koste het gestyg van 8 tot 11 miljoen rand. Hulle taakkoste het gedaal van 23 tot 17 miljoen. En hulle ongemagtigde uitgawes gestyg tot 'n massiewe 28 miljoen, wat sowat 30% van die totale begroting uitmaak. Now this entity additionally has failed to oversee and monitor the implementation of the Official Languages Act 12 of 2012. Currently, less than 20% of national departments have a language policy. Now, this lack of oversight, I'm glad the Honorable Minister of Science and Technology is present. The lack of proper oversight and assistance resulted in one example, the Ministry of Science and Technology adopting English, isiZulu, and Sepedi as official languages. Afrikaans was excluded in the policy of this department. Now, generally, people of the Northern Cape do not know isiZulu nor Sepedi and speak English only occasionally and out of self-defense. They speak Afrikaans and Setswana, and it is clear that they will not benefit from the scientific developments and SAK progress in their own province. The language which is widely spoken in this area of our country is ignored to the detriment of the Northern Cape people. Where is the fairness when you limit the opportunities of people based purely on the language? Maybe the Minister is still in a retributive mode, punishing Afrikaans speakers because maybe she was forced to speak Afrikaans during her school days. The core mandate to promote multilingualism in South Africa has been lost. Sihlalo, maphatiswa andisokuza ndithathu jakala solushi gushazam. And this is what happened at PANSOP, because the board saw it fit to appoint a man they had previously fired and who had brought lawsuits against them as CEO. Now this has led to internal revolt and petitions, and this entity is at war with itself. And how do you build social cohesion if you are unable to build cohesion in your own organization? The DA acknowledges that we can never undo the injustice suffered by the previous generations, but that is not to say that we can't do anything for future generations. It is our duty to the future generation of this country to promote the languages our country has to offer. Unfortunately, PANSOP's achievement in this regard reads like a ghost story because their achievements are invisible. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister, the DA urges you to implement the recommendations of the Public Research Institute tabled in March 2014, specifically the recommendation to close PANSOP completely and save the taxpayer approximately 35 million. In the functions of this entity can be taken over by the functions of this entity can be taken over by the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Linguists, Religious and Linguistic Communities, which is a Chapter 9 institution. Parliament will then be able to do proper oversight and demand accountability. Let us create a fair and just society by setting the conditions that incubate the honorable ideas of freedom, fairness, and opportunity. I thank you.
Ke batla go tlhalosetsa gore nna ga ka tsena sekolo mo Afrika Borwa a ska bua ka nna yalo ke a leboga.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Yes. Can we now call upon Honorable J.M. Mahlangu?
Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, and other ministers in the House, colleagues, and our guests in the gallery, comrades, ladies and gentlemen. We are Africa and thus pursue the African agenda for the African identity. It is for that reason that as the ANC, we support this budget. Whilst introducing my debate, Honorable Chair, I would like this House, through you, to acknowledge the presence of Andronika Hriev. She's a rising hip-hop star that the Department of Arts and Culture have uncovered in Mapoteng, Northern Cape. If we have to judge this department, there are certain tools we have to use. And those tools are the medium-term strategic framework, informed by the manifesto of the party that won the elections, in this case, the African National Congress, informed by the MTEF plans, informed by the APP that is approved by Parliament, aligned to the National Development Plan. That's how we should judge the performance of these departments, amongst others. Ungqongqotjhe womnyango Baba Unyambose ukhulume izinto eziqhakathekile kakhulu. Abalingani bami sebaphawulile ngezinye zazo. Mina ngizathi nje qaphu okwamabala wengwe. Kumele njengabantu baseSouth Africa sibungaze besisekele ibhudango lalomnyango, ikakhulukazi isiqubulo esithi thina siyi-Afrika. Ngoba nangembala iAfrika, ikakhulukazi eSouth Africa, ingeyethu sonke ngokutsho komqulo omkhulu we-ANC Freedom Charter, ukuthi ingeyabo bonke abantu abanzima nabamhlophe abaphila kiyo. Kuqakathekile futhi bonyana njengomphakathi wala South Africa sibungaze labo abasikhambele ngaphambili kwezobukhwari, kwezamasiko, kwezekolo, kwezefundo, kwezemidlalo, kwezepolitiki nokunye. Kuqakathekile bonyana vele sikhumbule bese iziqiniseko sokuthi labo abaziwa mlando wala eSouth Africa nalabo engazange batshejwe ngesikhathi inahale iphethwe ngilaba begandelelo ukuthi nje isikhathi sifikile ukuthi sibakhumbule. Kungakho sisekela umnqopho lo womnyango ungqongqotjhe awubiza ngokuthi Liberation Heritage Route. Lo umhlamo omutsha wokukhumbula imvelaphi yethu esikhola ukuthi izaba ingxenye yakazwelonke yakamhlaba uyalingana. Kukhona ke indawo eziqalweko ezizakhona kizo ukuthi kwakhiwe lezi inkhumbuzo zokuthi imvelaphi yethu ikhambe njani. Ngizwile ke umhlonitshwa la uGrunewald nakakhulumako ahlangahlanganisa izinto, akhuluma ngama-Afrikaner aba-contrast ne-ANC and PAC. Ukuhlangana lokho kumele nangabe ukhuluma.
Honorable member, just hold on. Honorable Groenewald.
I just want to ask whether Mr. Groenewald spoke. I don't think he spoke. Dr. Mulder spoke. So just help that honorable member with his names.
Yes, it's Honorable Mulder. It's Honorable Mulder.
Yeah.
Thanks for that correction.
Akumelanga sihlangahlanganisa izinto. Ngaphakathi kwe-ANC kunabantu abakhuluma ilimu lesi-Afrikaans, ama-Afrikaner. So awukwazi ukubeka ama-Afrikaner le uthathe inhlangano uzibekela. Uhlanganisa izinto onwarag and ubungudokotela. Enye yalezi zinto umklamo lo ungqongqotjhe akhulume ngawo kumele ukuthi ulungise ikuzolo lethu elahlangahlanganiswako. And I'm saying there is distortion. And that distortion continues to happen. This afternoon, the honorable member who just stood up and challenged what I was saying is saying to us, his family suffered in the Anglo-Boer War. There was never an Anglo-Boer War. That's a distortion of history. We have South African War where blacks suffered on both sides. We cannot continue to distort history in this house during our time. It cannot be right. It cannot be correct. There is no way that this country will go back to the rule by the minority. The future and the security of the minority, be it Afrikaners, Khoi, and the rest, is embedded in the majority. And the ANC is a home for all parties, including you when you can change your mind. In that history that he's talking about, you must remember, in that history that he's talking about, whites were the only people that were recorded. Both the British and the Afrikaner. To add on, they then recognized the dogs and the horses. The black Africans were not recorded. Hundreds of them perished in both camps, children and women, and they are not recognized. We must correct that history. And we had all these things, and Verwoerd came here.
Order, honorable members. Give Honorable Mahlangu an opportunity to continue.
Courtesy of Verwoerd, the DA pursues the agenda of Verwoerd. He died somewhere here between these two chairs. It is scandalous, very scandalous. We need to reiterate that justice for blacks will not flow from political oratory. Members of the DA. White South Africa must recognize and accept that justice for blacks cannot be achieved without radical changes in the structure of our society and our economy. The comfortable, the entrenched, cannot continue to tremble at the prospect of change of the status quo. Millions of South Africans remain cheated for centuries. There must be an understanding that restitution is going to be a very costly exercise. Unemployment, lack of sanitation, poor road, healthcare, inferior Bantu education, colored and Indian education, each is a bitter component of our heritage. Quadruple millions are required to correct the situation. And indeed, the appointment of some of the few blacks to protect the privilege of white in the main opposition is not going to help. Giving handouts to some of the students in our universities to follow them is not sustainable. Justice long deferred has accumulated interest, and it is not going to be an easy cost to pay. We must be ready for our journey. Our history is better captured by Walter Rodney on his book titled How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Now, it was interesting that during this debate, none of the DA people stood out and say, where we govern, the rhetoric that they always say. You know what? I have visited some of the places in the Western Cape. I can't believe this. I went to their suburbs, beautiful suburbs, all windows facing the ocean, care of Verwoerd. I went to Nyanga, I went to Lang, I went to Kule, to Khayelitsha, Philippi. I went to the colored areas. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. The only development we have is on N2 Gateway, contributed by the whole country, from the Department of Housing, Women Settlement. Some of the developments in Khayelitsha and others occurred during the time of the ANC. What is happening today? The blacks in Khayelitsha, Kukuletu, The young kids, I'm talking about the young kids. They have to play in the gravesite. A scandal. For the white privilege, they have more than 16 swimming pools in one space. And that's where you govern.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member.
Honorable Muller, what you are talking about is nothing closer to what we talk about when we talk about social cohesion. You are terribly lost.
The time has expired, Honorable Mathan.
Sorry?
The time has expired. Thank you very
Anyway,
much.
we support the person.
Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Can we now call the Honorable Minister of Arts and Culture to close the debate?
Well, thank you, Chair. Perhaps for record, let's just say that in arts and culture, there is a section which is responsible for development and promotion. And I've mentioned here a number of programs, including what we do in investing to young people. We mentioned the incubators program, which is ongoing. We mentioned 560,000 jobs for those who cared to listen, listened. We did say that the very year we're coming from, the contribution here by this sector has been 90.5 billion rands, which is 2.9% of the GDP. And we have also emphasized the point that through this government and through the leadership of the president, we have organized and ensured that artists themselves are united. We have said things about entities which are not performing. Repeating that, I don't know how it's going to help. But what we're saying is that those which are not performing have been put under scrutiny, and we are dealing with and we specifically mentioned them. And it's something which we know. We also said that one of the things we are looking to with the white paper review is to see whether we can rationalize some of the entities, because others duplicate each other. The member, Honorable Rabotapi, is talking about fruitless, irregular expenditure and all those things. Let me, for record, repeat this. Based on the very same things he's talking about, we decided to take step in the government, in the department. And the DG was suspended based on that, and we had to follow process. There's nothing which has fizzled. We advertised, companies came, the company which won the tender is busy on the forensics. They have been given a specific time of 6 months, and already they've given the minister the preliminary report. The work is continuing on that score. And also, I didn't think that members of parliament will stoop so low of just taking some media reports which are not verified. There is no such thing. There are processes which are being followed. There is no handshake which has happened and all those things. And just for an advice, Honorable Rabotapi, it would be important to read what the annual report of the department says. Because if you read it, you would know that what you say is being economic with the truth about Robben Island. Robben Island has an unqualified report. I don't know where you take this thing from. What happened to if you are talking about the history, that is your problem. As we speak now, there is no such thing as we are saying about Robben Island. So you must really ensure that you follow up your truth. The Honorable Member, Machobeni, firstly, Sarah Patman is celebrated in South Africa, only under this ANC government. she's a Khoi. And this thing that the Khois are not taken seriously, I don't know where it comes from. If you go around the world, the coat of arms of any government is that very important symbol of a nation. And our coat of arms is not Italian, is not Greek, it is Khoi. Just go and read that, you will see that. We have legislation which are taking on board the interest of the Khoi and the San.
Order.
And in its own strategic perspective, the African National Congress moved from the premise of the foremost indigenous people in this country, which is the Khoi and the San. So we shouldn't come up with things which we can't verify. This very coming December, the Reconciliation Month, this very December, we are going to be here celebrating the Khoi and the San's life and correcting some of the distortion. And correcting some of the distortion here about the Anglo-Boer War. Actually, in that month, we'll be launching a book which clarifies that there is no such, it is South African war. When people talk about 26 Afrikaner women and children who died in the concentration camp, we also are going to be talking about these 21,000 African women and children. So we should not distort history. Honorable Mulder, I don't know. We had this consultative meeting.
Round up in 1 minute, Minister.
Okay. About the statues and the heritage landscape. You come here, you say nobody, no government will force you. Nobody forced you. We called a meeting and you came to the meeting voluntarily. Nobody forced you. But if there are things which have to be changed, they are going to be changed in this country. It goes like that. We will be consulting, but at the end of the day, if a decision has to be made, will be made. Nobody will be forced. It's democracy in action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Honorable Members, and our esteemed guests. That concludes the debate and the business of this extended public committee. The committee will now rise. Thank you very much.